Introduction: The Call of Solitude. Imagine a life where you no longer chase people, approval, or validation. A life where your internal peace is completely undisturbed by outside noise, and your divine purpose is no longer dictated by the shifting opinions of others. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning not to the anxiety of chaotic expectations, but to the steady, calm voice within you, a voice you once ignored because the external world was simply too loud. Now picture this clearly. You are alone, but you are not lonely. You have intentionally let go of what no longer serves your highest good. In that thick, unbothered silence, something extraordinary awakens inside you. Clarity returns. Strength rebuilds. Truth shines through. Buddhism teaches us that true, radical transformation never begins in the presence of others. It begins in the absolute sanctuary of solitude, where your soul finally has the open space to breathe. This is your personal path to healing. This is how you rebuild yourself when everything has fallen apart. It is a slow, sacred process of structural mental renewal, and it starts right now with 12 profound Buddhist principles that will reshape your mind, renew your spirit, and return you to the source of who you truly are. 1. Detach from the illusion of control. The primary root of modern human suffering comes from a single, persistent delusion, the belief that we can control things we were never meant to. We want the people in our lives to behave exactly according to our scripts. We want life to move flawlessly along our timelines. We expect situations to unfold precisely as we imagine them in our minds. And when reality inevitably deviates from our internal blueprint, we fall into cycles of frustration, deep anxiety, or crushing defeat. But here is the foundational truth of existence. You cannot control what other people say, think, or do. You cannot control the macro outcomes of your efforts, the timing of the universe, or the unexpected twists of fate. Life is inherently unpredictable. People are beautifully, dangerously imperfect. Circumstances will shift overnight without a word of warning. Buddhism explains that psychological pain is never caused by the external event itself, but rather by our desperate attachment to how we believe the event should have happened. As the Buddha wisely remarked, you only lose what you cling to. Think of it like holding a fistful of dry sand. The tighter you squeeze your hand to control it, the faster it leaks through your fingers. But when you open your palm flat, the sand remains completely at peace. When you release your rigid grip on expectations, you begin to experience life exactly as it is, not as you demand it to be. Let go of trying to force outcomes. Let go of trying to fix or save everyone around you. Let go of the exhausting need for everything to be perfect. When you stop resisting reality, your suffering ceases instantly. In this conscious surrender, you don't become weak. You become infinitely wiser. Instead of bleeding valuable energy on things you cannot influence, you begin to master the one thing you always can: your internal response. That is where your true sovereign power resides. 2. Sit with yourself, not your distractions. In our hyperconnected, modern landscape, it is easier than ever to run away from your own mind. Every single time a flash of emotional discomfort, boredom, loneliness, or quiet sadness bubbles up to the surface, your hand instinctively reaches out. There is always a screen to scroll, a notification to check, a song to play, or an empty conversation to escape into. While these micro-escapes seem entirely harmless on the surface, over time they construct a dangerous, addictive psychological habit. You start actively avoiding your own presence. You begin to fear silence. You develop a deep-seated resistance to stillness. Slowly, without ever consciously realizing it, you become a total stranger to your own mind. You become terrified of being left alone in a room with your own thoughts. Buddhism teaches that true systemic healing can only begin when you stop distracting yourself and start facing yourself. Why is the act of sitting alone in stillness so incredibly vital to your survival? Because underneath the superficial noise of daily life lies your unfiltered truth. Underneath the initial layer of awkward discomfort lies absolute clarity. the heavy emotions you have buried deep within your subconscious, the quiet whispers of unhealed sadness, guilt, or long-standing longing, are not trying to destroy your life. They are trying to guide you back home. When you train yourself to sit completely alone without reaching for a phone, without numbing your thoughts with digital noise, you finally begin to hear what your soul has been trying to communicate for years. You quickly realize you are not empty. You have just been completely unattended. You are not broken. You have just gone unheard by yourself. Sit in stillness not as a form of punishment, but as a celebratory return to your own heart. 3. Embrace the pain that rebuilds you. The natural human instinct is to flee from pain. We are biologically wired to avoid it, to fix it as fast as possible, or to mask it under layers of superficial comfort. But through the lens of Buddhist philosophy, pain is never viewed as an enemy. Pain is a vital messenger. It is an unblinking mirror reflecting your unhealed attachments. It is, quite literally, the precise crack through which light enters the darkened soul. The honest truth about human growth is that it never feels comfortable. True growth feels like loss. It feels like profound confusion. It feels like your entire world is falling apart at the seams. But look at nature. A seed cannot grow into a massive, rooted tree while remaining safely encased in its protective shell. The seed must completely break open. Its original form must be utterly destroyed from the inside out so that it can push through the heavy soil and rise into something greater. You must allow outdated parts of your ego to break open so you can rise into a higher state of consciousness. Pain is not here as a cosmic punishment. It is here to intelligently reshape you. When you sit courageously with your suffering instead of escaping it, you begin to unlock its ancient wisdom. That recent heartbreak, it showed you exactly what you truly value. That devastating failure, it taught you a fierce resilience you never knew you possessed. That isolating silence, it brought you face to face with the hidden parts of yourself that are crying out for targeted healing. Shift your mindset entirely. Stop asking the universe, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" This subtle shift turns vulnerability into unshakable power. The most peaceful, centered individuals you will ever meet are never the ones who lived a life free of suffering. They are the ones who looked their deepest pain dead in the eye, accepted its presence with total grace, and allowed it to burn away the old, fragile versions of themselves. 4. Simplify your life, amplify your spirit. We live in an aggressive societal system that continuously conditions us to want more, do more, buy more, and consume more. In this chaotic environment, simplicity is often miscategorized as a weakness, a lack of ambition, or a step backward. But in the architecture of Buddhism, intentional simplicity is the ultimate expression of clarity and internal peace. Take a moment to audit your current existence. How many physical items, mental obligations, and emotional weights are you dragging along that you do not truly need? How much of your vital life force energy is completely drained every day simply by managing clutter that adds absolutely nothing to your spiritual evolution? The physical mess in your living space, the overcommitted obligations in your calendar, the toxic chatter in your social circle, they are quietly and constantly weighing down your spirit. The Buddha identified that craving is the absolute root of all human suffering. This does not just mean the desire for material goods. It means the constant, frantic craving for external recognition, more digital distractions, and endless validation. The true path to rebuilding yourself is never found in adding more layers. It is found in the art of radical subtraction. Start asking yourself daily, what is genuinely essential to my internal peace? Simplify your immediate physical surroundings. Intentionally let go of what you no longer use. Simplify your relationships. Aggressively choose depth, honesty, and quality over sheer quantity. Simplify your mind by consciously releasing cyclical thoughts that do not serve your highest self. When you begin to live with less external noise, you open up the internal capacity to feel more. You grant yourself the sacred space to breathe, the time to reflect, and the energy to grow completely uninterrupted. 5. Become the observer, not the reactor. One of the most liberating realizations in all of Buddhist psychology is this: you are not your thoughts, and you are absolutely not your emotions. You are the timeless, vast awareness that observes them. Yet, most people live their entire lives completely oblivious to this separation. The moment an external trigger occurs, a rude comment from a coworker, a sudden moment of financial fear, or a painful memory from the past, they react instantly and unconsciously. Anger floods their veins, anxiety hijacks their breathing, or sadness pulls them into a dark hole. Before they even realize what has happened, they are speaking or acting from a place of reactivity, creating more bad karma and further suffering for themselves. Buddhism offers an entirely different way of operating, the path of the conscious observer. Instead of being violently pulled around by the changing tides of your emotions, you train yourself to simply watch them. Think of your mind as the infinite blue sky and your thoughts and emotions as passing storm clouds. The clouds will arrive, they will darken the sky, and they will pour rain. But the sky itself never becomes the cloud. The sky simply provides the space for the cloud to pass through. This practice requires immense discipline. Your ego will scream to fight, your pain will demand to react, and your old habits will beg you to lash out. But when you learn to pause for just 3 deep breaths, you reclaim your sovereign power. You shift from an automatic, robotic reaction to an intentional, conscious response. When anger rises, don't run from it or act on it. Simply note it. Anger has entered the room. Watch it rise, watch it peak, and watch it inevitably dissolve back into the space it came from. This is emotional mastery. 6. Let go of your old identity. Every single one of us carries an old, outdated version of ourselves that was heavily shaped by past trauma, childhood conditioning, or old rejections. Perhaps it is the not good enough version, the always fails version, or the version that was deeply criticized, betrayed, or abandoned by those who were supposed to love them. Without consciously realizing it, you began to completely identify with those wounds. You started defining your personality based on your history. You say things like, "I've always been an anxious person," or "This is just who I am." But Buddhism shatters this illusion with the doctrine of anatta, the truth that there is no permanent, unchangeable, fixed self. The identity you believe is set in stone is nothing more than a collection of heavily rehearsed habits. It can be completely dismantled, and it can be beautifully rebuilt. In order to step into your highest potential, you must be entirely willing to let go of the old version of you that only knows how to survive based on old wounds. You do not need to look back at that past version of yourself with hatred or disgust. It did the absolute best it could with the limited awareness it possessed at the time. It kept you alive through the storm. But you are no longer in that storm. You are ready to grow. Releasing the old self is not about becoming someone completely fake. It is about stripping away the layers of protection that have hardened around you, returning to the pure, untainted awareness you were before the world tried to tell you who to be. Forgive your past, drop the heavy story, and grant yourself permission to outgrow who you used to be. 7. Learn the power of walking alone. There will inevitably come a season in your life where you feel entirely misunderstood, cast aside, or completely isolated. Longtime friends will slowly fade away, romantic relationships will crumble into dust, familial support systems might vanish, and you will be left standing in the quiet ruins wondering, why is there no one here with me? But what if that crushing isolation is actually a highly sacred, protective intervention by the universe? In the Buddhist tradition, solitude is never viewed as a tragedy or a social failure. It is viewed as a supreme honor. In the ancient Kagavasana Sutta, the Buddha explicitly exhorts seekers to walk alone, like a rhinoceros horn, rather than staying entangled in relationships that drain their spiritual focus. When you walk completely alone, away from the constant opinions and cultural programming of society, you finally get the opportunity to meet the most critical person in your existence, yourself. We live in a society that pathologizes being alone, treating it as a condition that needs to be instantly cured by constant connection. But connection without deep self-awareness inevitably leads to severe identity confusion. You start living your life to please others, saying yes when your soul is screaming no, and warping your personality to fit into boxes you were never meant to inhabit. In intentional solitude, those false masks naturally fall away. You remember your core values, your authentic dreams, and your internal power. Solitude is the sacred crucible where the real work of self-rebuilding takes place. When you can walk your path without needing a single person to clap for you, you become genuinely dangerous to the forces of illusion. You become whole. 8. Choose mindfulness over multitasking. In our fast-paced modern economic system, the ability to multitask is constantly praised as if it were a supreme professional superpower. The more tasks you can frantically juggle simultaneously, the more productive and valuable you are told you are. But this is a massive psychological trap that fractures your consciousness. The more tasks you divide your limited attention across, the less of your actual soul you bring to any single moment of your life. You swallow your food while mindlessly scrolling through negative news on your phone. You pretend to listen to your loved ones while your mind is racing to formulate your next email reply. You walk through nature while your brain is trapped in a loop of past regrets. You are effectively moving through your limited days on absolute autopilot. Buddhism teaches the radical opposite of this scattered existence through the practice of sati, pure, unadulterated mindfulness. This is the deliberate practice of bringing 100% of your conscious awareness to the single task right in front of you, no matter how simple or mundane it may appear to the outside world. When you are eating, do nothing but eat. When you are listening to someone, give them your entire universe. When you are walking, feel the physical texture of the ground beneath your feet as if your very life depended on it. When your mind is scattered across 20 different anxieties, your energy becomes dangerously weak and depleted. Mindfulness grounds your energy back into the current moment, the only pocket of time that actually exists. It instantly drops your nervous system out of fight or flight mode and clears away years of accumulated mental fog. Under the lens of absolute mindfulness, sipping a warm cup of tea or washing the dishes ceases to be a chore. It transforms into a deeply sacred, meditative ritual. 9. Accept what is and change what you can. One of the most exhausting, soul-crushing behaviors a human being can engage in is the constant, violent fight against historical reality. We spend hours of our valuable days desperately wishing the past could be edited. We replay old mistakes over and over in our minds, drown in paralyzing regret over poor decisions, harbor toxic resentment toward those who harmed us, and obsess over events that are completely out of our hands. But you cannot heal your life while actively fighting reality. Buddhism introduces a beautiful, powerful equilibrium through the twin pillars of radical acceptance and conscious action. You must accept exactly what is, aggressively change what can be changed, and develop the profound spiritual wisdom required to tell the two apart. There is a massive misconception that acceptance means giving up, becoming a passive victim, or tolerating bad behavior. This is completely false. Acceptance simply means acknowledging the baseline truth of the present moment without wasting energy denying it. If it is raining outside, screaming at the sky will not stop the rain. It will only make you miserable. Accepting that it is raining allows you to calmly pick up an umbrella and walk forward with clarity. Stop bleeding your life force wishing a past event never happened. It happened. It is unchangeable. By radically accepting that reality, you instantly stop the leak of your mental energy. You create a clean, still inner landscape from which you can execute precise, powerful actions to alter your future. True, impactful action never arises from a place of frantic panic. It can only grow from a foundation of absolute internal stillness. 10. Choose compassion even for yourself. It is often incredibly easy for us to extend deep compassion, boundless patience, and gentle words of encouragement to other people when they are suffering. When a close friend falls down or makes a mistake, We wrap them in love and remind them of their humanity. But the very second we fall short of our own expectations, our internal dialogue turns incredibly toxic. We become our own most brutal, unforgiving judges. We insult our intelligence in the silence of our own minds, weaponize our past failures against ourselves, and carry heavy loads of guilt for years on end. We hold our fragile egos to impossible standards of perfection and ruthlessly punish ourselves when we inevitably trip. But hear this truth clearly. You can never sustainably grow into a higher version of yourself if you are constantly waging a mental war against your own heart. Buddhism teaches that karuna, true, universal compassion, must absolutely begin at home, and that home is your own mind. Self-compassion is never about making lazy excuses for poor behavior. It is about having the intelligence to recognize that you are a human being operating within a complex world. Healing is never a perfectly straight, linear line. It is a messy, winding staircase. When you inevitably slip up, you must train your inner voice to speak to you with the exact same tenderness you would offer to a frightened child. The quality of your internal voice determines the energetic environment your soul is forced to live in. If that voice is constantly harsh, critical, and violent, your spirit will naturally shrivel up and hide in fear. But if that voice is consistently steady, patient, and kind, your spirit will feel safe enough to completely bloom. 11. Break the cycle by breaking the thought. Every single day, tens of thousands of automated thoughts pass through the corridors of your mind. Some are completely harmless, some are mechanically useful, but a vast majority of them are deeply toxic, limiting loops that operate entirely beneath your conscious awareness. Thoughts like, "I don't have what it takes," "people always leave me," or "it's too late for me to start over" run continuously in the background. The danger is that the more frequently these thought loops are allowed to repeat without interruption, the deeper they carve themselves into your neural pathways. You don't just experience the thought anymore. You begin to believe it as an objective fact. And once a thought hardens into a core belief, it automatically dictates your choices, controls your energy, and constructs your entire external reality. The opening lines of the ancient Dhammapada explicitly state, "Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-made." The life you are physically living right now is nothing more than a direct material reflection of the thoughts you have consistently chosen to believe and feed with your attention. If your baseline thoughts are rooted in lack, fear, and insecurity, your life will continuously mirror those exact frequencies back to you. But thoughts are not permanent structures. They are simply deeply ingrained habits. What has been systematically programmed into your subconscious can be systematically reprogrammed out of it. The key to this mental prison is raw awareness. You must step back and become the guard of your own mind. The very moment a limiting, negative thought loop starts to run, you must consciously intervene and say, "Stop. This is an old pattern, not my truth." Interrupt the momentum before it has the chance to settle into a belief, and deliberately replace it with an empowering, conscious thought. It takes time, but with every single interruption, you weaken the old cage and build your mental sovereignty. 12. Return to the breath, your ultimate anchor. In every single moment of absolute chaos, internal confusion, crippling fear, or heavy uncertainty, there exists one powerful mechanism that is always with you, always completely free, and always strong enough to instantly pull you back to a state of peace: your breath. It sounds deceptively simple, perhaps too simple to be taken seriously by a hyper-complex mind. But in the deep lineages of Buddhism, the breath is recognized as the ultimate bridge connecting your body, your mind, and your timeless spirit. When life becomes intensely overwhelming, your mind instinctively fractures. It races into the past, agonizing over things that cannot be changed, or it leaps wildly into the future, constructing terrifying worst-case scenarios. It manufactures panic out of thin air. But look closely at your breath. Your breath can never exist in yesterday, and it can never breathe in tomorrow. Your breath can only ever exist in the absolute, exact now. The past is nothing more than a memory. The future is nothing more than an imagination. This current inhale, this current exhale, this is the only reality that is actually happening. When you consciously pull your scattered attention away from the storm of your thoughts and drop it directly onto the sensation of the air entering your nostrils, you bring your entire being back home. For thousands of years, master monks have used anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, to cultivate an unshakable inner stillness that no worldly event can disrupt. When you slow your breath down intentionally, you send a direct biological signal to your nervous system that you are safe. Your heart rate softens, the chemical flood of cortisol slows down, and the mental noise begins to clear away. You quickly realize that you are not the storm raging in your life. You are the calm, steady space through which the breath moves. Whenever the world gets too loud, don't rush to fix it. Don't fight it. Just pause, return to your anchor, and breathe your way back into your own power. Conclusion: the journey of the self. As we bring this deep exploration to a close, let the weight of these principles settle into the deepest parts of your consciousness. Rebuilding yourself completely alone is not an easy journey, nor was it ever promised to be. It is a path reserved for the courageous, for those who are entirely done living as prisoners of external validation and old, unhealed wounds. Remember the core truths we have traveled through today. Your pain is not a punishment, but a fierce reshaping tool. Your solitude is not an isolation to be feared, but a sacred preparation room. Your mind is not a chaotic battlefield you must succumb to, but a temple that you have the absolute authority to govern through the power of your thoughts and the anchor of your breath. The Buddha taught that our existence is a continuous stream of awareness, and every single day you are handed a fresh opportunity to alter its course. As you step forward from this moment, look at each new morning not as a continuation of your old struggles, but as a clean canvas. Walk your path with your head held high, not out of hollow pride, but because you have finally remembered your infinite, inherent worth. Stop chasing the world. Turn your awareness inward, master your internal space, and watch as your entire reality beautifully transforms from the inside out. The next chapter of your sovereign life begins with your very next breath.